Hello, welcome to another episode of Thick Slices and Deep Cuts. This evening I will be discussing and ranking the discography of brutal juggernaut of a band from northern Sweden. I'm talking about MESHUGGAH. They are the godfathers of what is now known as gent, but I think they're much more than that. I think the gent scene was highly influenced by them, but I think MESHUGGAH is just MESHUGGAH, or MESHUGGAH are just MESHUGGAH. They're as heavy as death metal, but they're not quite pure death metal. They're not quite pure thrash. They're way heavier than most bands in those genres. They're definitely have like the prog thing going on with the complicated math metal stuff. They got some atmosphere. They're awesome. I love them. They're super aggressive, and they're not an easy band to get into. They will give your skull a headache sometimes, but for some reason, when I'm in the mood for them, I'm a huge fan of pretty much all of their albums, all of their eras. And so getting two things here, they have 8 studio albums we're going to be ranking. So, and I got my notes here because they have a lot of EPs. Won't be ranking the EP None from '94, although that's excellent. Won't be ranking the 20-minute song I from 2004, although that's awesome. And won't be ranking, there's a CD they had called Rare Tracks, which has just odds and ends from their catalog. Won't be ranking that, but that's pretty awesome. What else they have? True Human Design, Self-Caged, even their debut EP that goes all the way back to '89. When they sounded like, just this band in its infancy sounded like Metallica or something. Psychic Test Build, something like that. But anyway, all these EPs, not going to rank those, but they're all pretty darn good. Pretty cool. So there's nothing of these 8, so whatever I rank at the bottom is still good. Everything is good to, I don't know if they have necessarily one perfect album, but they just have all these, they're just always impressive. Every time I hear MESHUGGAH, I get excited because they only put an album out like every 4 years. And when they drop it, you're just like, man, they are the godfathers of 8-string guitars. I mean, back in the day, they were down-tuning their 7s as low as 8s until, I guess, Ibanez came along and gave them proper guitars that stayed, kept the intonation and everything else. So, let's see, what else? I saw them live in 2017. I saw them open for Megadeth, of all bands. Tesseract, the British genty band from the UK, opened. They were pretty cool. Then it was MESHUGGAH, and they were just pulverizing. And then it was Megadeth after that. And in fact, I didn't see them with Fredrik Thordendal, their main guitar player. He stayed back in Sweden for whatever reason for that tour to do something. But they had Per Nilsson of Scar Symmetry on guitar, and he was cool. So I think that covers all that. So anyway, we'll get right to it. They got 8 studio albums. We're going to rank all 8 here. And I have all copies here. So I got physical copies of all the full lengths. So we'll just get right into it. At number 8, and I don't think this would be any surprise, and I do like this, and the band has a ton of talent. But at number 8, I'm going to go with their debut full length from '91, Contradictions Collapse. I only rank this 8th because it's a starting point and it's the furthest from what would become the classic MESHUGGAH sound. Jens Kidman, the vocalist, the bald vocalist, well, here he's got long hair and he's the other guitar player. So he was playing guitar for the band in the beginning. He's almost singing a little bit. You can hear the Metallica, you can hear the James Hetfield. And some of the chords remind me of something from Orion, but it's a lot more technical. This is super teched out, thrash death, teched out, very cool. Man, it's super tight right out of the gate with Thomas Haka on drums. Who else? I guess Peter Norden was their bass player at the time. So at this point, they're a 4-piece. I think they had a video for Abnegating Cecily, which is cool. Again, it's a little different than the typical MESHUGGAH sound, but it's still cool. Paralyzing Ignorance, Cadaverous Mastication, Greed, Erroneous Manipulation. It's cool. Mine even has the None EP on it from '94, so that's pretty cool too. But cool album. I mean, it sounds like MESHUGGAH. It just doesn't they're not down-tuned yet. You know, they're not super down-tuned, and they're doing technical stuff with odd time signatures, but they're not doing their classic djenty maze of riffs that just kind of weave in and out, and you think you know how it's going, and then you hear it and you're like, wait, where'd the one count go? They're not quite to that level yet, but still an awesome debut. You can just tell in listening to this, the one thing, even though it's 8, is this band is just so talented. They have their own thing going on, and they're just super tight, super talented, super technical. And even in the beginning, Frederick on guitars, he already is bringing in what I call it, I don't know if he listens to the guy or not, but, and you can kind of hear it on here, he's got a little bit of this like Alan Holdsworth type of guitar playing. So he's got this really strange jazz fusion kind of whole tone, odd solos and things that go over these heavy riffs. But anyway, so there you go. Coming in at number 8, the debut from '91, I've got Contradictions, Collapse. Okay, so coming in at number 7, this was their 7th album. From 2012, I have a Koloss. Excellent album. It's a cool album. This is Meshuggah. At this point in Meshuggah's career here in 2012, they have figured out what they wanted to do as a band. They've perfected it, you know, and they've just mastered this Meshuggah sound that they set out to achieve in the beginning. They've more than figured that out by this point. So I think the reason I rank this 7th isn't because I don't like it. It's just I don't know how significant it is in their career compared to other albums. But Do Not Look Down, Behind the Sun, Demiurge. It ends with this really quiet one called The Last Vigil, which is kind of a cool juxtaposition to all the brutality that happens in the first 9 tracks or whatever it is. Break Those Bones, Whose Sinews Gave It Motion. That's a good one. They open up a concert with Swarm. Marrow. I think, like I said, I don't know if this is as significant in their catalog as some of the other albums. And there are some tracks on here, as with a lot of Meshuggah albums, there are some tracks that I'm not sure what to do with. Doesn't mean I don't like them. I'm just like, they're not. This is not a band that's trying to be catchy. Like, if they're catchy, it's incidental, because they're not trying to be. And there are a few tracks on here I don't really remember too much about. They don't have anything that makes you... There's no signature sound or melody in the song. But it's still a cool album. That's a pretty wild album cover. And, again, there's nothing wrong with this album. So there you go. Coming in at number 7, I've got, from 2012, I've got Koloss. All right, coming in at number 6, gonna have to get out the vinyl for this one. For 2016, I have their most recent release to date. I've got The Violent Sleep of Reason. Let me show you the. So obviously, when an album's over 50 minutes, and this one's nearly an hour, it's double vinyl. Just the. I'm not a huge new vinyl collector. But I was given this as a gift, and what a gift it was. Awesome gift. So I am more than happy to say that I've got this on vinyl. Anyway, The Violent Sleep of Reason, again, this is their most recent one. This is the one after Koloss. It's another... Meshuggah has completely figured out, by this point, they've just totally figured out what their sound is, and they're just honing their craft even more. They're just so, they've advanced their sound to the point where they're just, nobody can mess with their sound. And I think on this one I read that they recorded the guitars and drums, at least the rhythm ones, they recorded everything live. I'm sure they did overdubs later, but apparently they decided to record all the guitars and drums, at least the main tracks, as a live unit. I dig this album. Again, I just don't know how significant it is compared to some of the earlier ones, but Born in Dissonance, so impressively heavy. This album is heavy. Monstro City. A lot of these songs I don't remember either, but Stifled is cool. Into Decay. I think it's another excellent release. I could have put this 7th and Koloss 6th. I mean, these two to me, they pretty much tie. In fact, In fact, I'm gonna make a move here. I just realized something. As impressed as I am with this album, I think it's slightly less significant than Koloss. I think there are only like 3 tracks on here, maybe. I think everything on here is fine, but I think there are really only 3 tracks that catch my interest, whereas this one probably has 5 or 6 that are pretty good. So I'm making an executive decision, and as we speak, I'm going to put Violent Sleep of Reason at number 7, and I'm going to put Koloss at number 6. I've been messing with this order all week. So there you go. So coming in at number 7, I have the Violent Sleep of Reason. Therefore, coming in at number 6 is Koloss. Okay, down to number 5. I can't believe this is 5th. This is tons of classic songs. But one album of theirs kind of found its way up the list. At least higher than this. But at number 5, I'm going to go with, well, I guess from 2002, Nothing. Although the version I have is a re-recorded version in 06, where they redid the guitars. The reason they did that was because they were using early 8-string guitars on the original recording, which has a slightly different, it's the same image, but with a different color concept in 2002. And this one from 06 has more of that blue look. So I think the album, the songs are solid, but I guess they weren't happy with the intonation problems of their 8 strings from 02. And then when Ibanez gave them proper 8 strings in, I guess like 03, 04, 05, somewhere in there, they were so impressed with them that they said, hey, we got to go back and redo the guitar tracks for this. And I think even Thomas Haka reprogrammed his drums, meaning I think he triggered all of his live drums to have a different, slightly different sound. But man, this is just classics. You got Rational Gaze, Perpetual Black Second. Closed Eye Visuals has this really cool Frederick Alan Holdsworthy solo thing in the middle. Winds Collide. Straws Pulled at Random. I said that these guys don't play melodically. There's a whole melodic section about 3 or 3.5 minutes into this. It's awesome. So they do give you a melodic, memorable moment on that track. Spasm I love. Spasm has this awesome rhythm that you don't hear on a lot of their other songs. So this is coming in at 5. I thought it was going to be 4, but you got Rational Gaze, Perpetual Black Second, Closed Eye Visuals, Straws Pulled at Random, Spasm. You could probably even put Winds Collide in that list. So I think this one just has, and it sounds awesome. And this is the first. I guess this is like the first album where they're just like straight up, we're in 8-string guitar mode. We're doing the math metal, like we're doing it. It might be a little more. This is pretty much where Meshuggah at this point, this is their 4th album. And by their 4th album, they've pretty much solidified with this album who they are. And I think it just has 1 or 2 more classics than Koloss. So there you go. I'm going to go with number 5, the classic album. Awesome album. And by the way, I never really listened to the O2 version. I think the album cover on the O2 one's pretty cool, but I never really listened to that version. So I can't tell if those guitars were really that bad, because in listening to this version, everything sounds, polished. So but there you go. Coming in at number 5, their 4th album from 02 or 06, depending on how you look at it. I've got Nothing. Okay, coming in at number 4, this is the album that surprised me when I went back to revisit, because I would have thought when I started this ranking, this would have been 7th or 6th. But it connected with me finally, and it's not an easy album to connect with. But at number 4, I'm going to go with, from 05, I'm going with Catch 33. This is a concept album. And here's what I mean by concept in this case. It's got 13 tracks, but they've got tracks marked in strange spots. So, like, you're just listening to the song, and if you don't know it, you don't see the track numbers changing. They just go from track 1 to track 2 to track 3, just in the middle of a riff. That's very similar. So like Autonomy Lost, Disenchantment, and Imprint of the Unsaved. Those 3 tracks to me are like the first movement of this concept. And it's kind of a slow to mid-paced mathematical thing. And their guitars sound great. Their 8-string guitars sound great on this album. And Jens's vocals sound great. I like the sound of this album. And while there isn't necessarily a standout track, it's meant to be listened to as pretty much one big piece. And like I said, the first 3 tracks kind of make up the first movement. Then there's like a little buzzy thing for 30 seconds before they go into the paradoxical spiral. And that's kind of connected with Reanimate and Entrapment. So those three songs kind of create one thing. And it's still got that slow mid-pace thing going on with all the twisted Gordian knot sounding, genty riffs. So that's really continues that pace. But they're really just those first two movements. And then you get to Mind's Mirrors, which breaks it all the way down. And what a relief. And you've got Jens on the spoken word, but with that cool vocoder. And that goes into a strange, weird, real primitive, minimalist type of clean channel guitar eerie thing. But Mind's Mirrors stands on its own. And then you go into In Death is Life, which goes right into In Death is Death. So those two tracks create one 15-minute or 16-minute chunk. So that's another movement. So you really are only up to about 4 songs at this point, even though you're probably on track 8 or 9. Shed is a standalone track. That stands on its own. It has its own rhythm. It begins and ends on its own. They had a video for that. And then it ends with 3 tracks that kind of pick up the pace, but they're all connected. Persona, Non Grata, Dehumanization, and Sum kind of close out the album. So I count this as 6 movements of a concept album. And like I said, this is the first time that they really had good 8 strings. And man, this is the first album where the production is perfectly polished. And so that because of the production quality on this, they immediately went back and redid their O2 album. At least redid the guitars. So like I said, I thought this was going to be at number 7 or 6, and it's moved up to 4. And at one point I had it even higher, but I think there were some other albums that, one, I guess I just like more classic or were more significant in their career. But I think this is a significant album in their career, too. This is when they finally got legitimate 8-string guitars and just really dialed in that tight sound that they basically had ever since. Since this album, I feel like their quality of production has been this consistent thing, especially when they went back and revamped Nothing. But so there you go. Coming in at number 4 from 2005, I've got Catch 33. Demiurge from Kolos. I'm glad I moved Kolos up 1 to 6 because some of these songs on here are great. Okay, coming in at number 3, I dig this album. From 2008, I've got Ob Zen. This is actually, if somebody's wanting to get into Meshuggah and they're like, everything I hear from them is it's too much. It's too complicated. It's too brutal. I don't know what's going on. I don't even know where the 1 count is. I would say, okay, well, why don't you check out Ob Zen? Bleed, the title track, Combustion, I think we heard earlier. I think those are easier to, you can follow along with those. You don't need to be one of these odd time signature prog rock kind of people to figure out what's going on some of these songs. But yeah, Combustion's great. Comes out just blasting away with the thrash beat. Bleed's got one of their most memorable double bass riffs. Lethargica is cool, and it's exactly like its title. It's very kind of like this pace. They're really good at doing the slow thing too. Ob Zen, the title track. Pineal Gland Optics is awesome. Ends with a long one that's really cool too. Dancers to a Discordant System. So it's just got a lot of classics. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At least 6 of these. At least 6 of the 9. And the other ones are fine too. Cool album cover. I like the title Ob Zen, so I guess it's like obscene and Zen. So it's just kind of a mixture of words there. But I thought I saw some negative reviews on this album, but I don't know. For me, it works. I like it. It's like their catchy album. I think a lot of people don't like Catch 33 because it's hard to get into. They're like, where does the song begin and where's this one end and why does it all sound the same? And it's strange, it's all strange. And I'm like, I guess it clicks with me on Catch 33, but I get that that's not where you'd want to start. If you're going to get into Meshuggah, you probably don't want to start with Catch 33, but you can start right here with Ob Zen. So there you go. Coming in at number 3 from 2008, I have Ob Zen. So if you know this band's catalog and you know what 2 albums I haven't picked out yet, I think these are the most significant albums in their career. I think these are the ones that, when I look at them, I mean, not only do I like these albums a ton, but they have all of the classics. And so it's just, which way do I put these? But so coming in at number 2, from 1998, I have Chaosphere. This show opened with New Millennium Cyanide Christ. I don't know what my favorite Meshuggah song is of all time, but man, New Millennium Cyanide Christ has got to be like a top 3. It also opens with Concatenation, which I think we're going to hear a remix version of Concatenation here coming up that's a way groovier, and it was recorded a few years later for the Rare Tracks compilation. Corridor of Chameleons. I mean, I always talk about these 3 factors I look for in music is heavy atmospheric prog. Corridor of Chameleons has all that. It's like, it's got this Frederick's doing this cool thing over the top. It's eerie and atmospheric. It's heavy as hell, and it's complicated with the patterns, so it's proggy like that. So Corridor of Chameleons. Neurotica is another good groovy one, kind of like this remix. The Mouth Licking What You've Bled. Sane is another good one. The Exquisite Machinery of Torture, and it ends with Elastic. This is also like a shorter album for them. Like the last track, Elastic, basically it's a 6-minute song, and then there's like 9.5 minutes of noise and stuff at the end. If you take out the 9.5 minutes, this is really only, you know, my version has the 8 songs. I think there are others with more tracks, but the album proper only has 8 songs. It's about 38 minutes if you cut out the end, but I think it works on this album. I think this album's a lot faster, and they're really aggressive on this. And that this is when they're still in their 7-string phase, but they're down-tuning their 7s. But I like it. It's just like, the bass is up. You can hear the bass in the mix. You know, like you can hear it clanking away. You can hear it clanking away, by the way, on Contradictions Collapse on the first album too, which I always appreciated. But you know, I think this is the Meshuggah sound. Obviously, they would fine-tune it even more, but I just feel like, man, the time in which this came out and the band's trajectory and what they were coming up with. And I just remember 98 was a down time for all kinds of music like this, but I remember this is one of the bright spots. And I just remember during this time hearing albums from them and just being like, I've never heard anything like, they're advancing. They're, you know, knocking down walls. They are moving things, and they're progressing the sound of extreme music. Because I had never heard guitars that down tuned and just that bone crushing, like New Millennium, Cyanide Christ, Corridor of Chameleons, Concatenation, Neurotica, Sane. Yeah, so there you go. Classic album for them. Coming in at number 2, I've got Chaosphere. So coming in at number 1, probably their number 1 pick overall by most people, but I'm going with, from 1995, I'm going with their second full-length, Destroy, Erase, Improve. I remember when this came out in 95, it came out of nowhere. Actually, it didn't totally come out of nowhere because they had this Nun EP that came out the year before it, which kind of got them on the map ahead of this. And that sounded a bit different from Contradictions Collapse. But here, I mean, my favorite song we heard earlier is Sublevels. It's my favorite song. Future Breed Machine used to be my favorite song, and it's one of my favorite songs. I probably listened to it way too many times, but Future Breed Machine opens it. Beneath is another awesome classic. Soul Burn, Transfixion, Vanished. This cool instrumental called Acrid Placidity. Inside What's Within Behind, Suffer and Truth, and then, like I said, it ends with Sublevels. This is as close to a perfect album as you're going to find with them. And again, you've got, like, this is the first one with Martin Hagstrom on second guitar, so Jens is now just vocals only. And it's the last one with Peter Norden on bass. Eventually, by the way, I didn't mention his name, but Dick Lofgren has been their bass player for some time now. But yeah, this is the first one with Hagstrom, the first one with Jens just doing vocals only. You know, again, it's early in their career. It may not sound completely like the classic Meshuggah sound, but this kind of is the classic Meshuggah sound. Like, in my opinion, they have, you know, they have the Catch 33, Obzen, Kolos, modern sound that they've had, but they also had this era where they had these two albums. You know, so you had that early EP and None and Contradictions Collapse where Jens was still kind of singing and kind of doing the Metallica thing. That was the early phase. Then they went into this awesome phase right here. And then Nothing was like a transition album. It was getting them closer to where they are now, but it still had touches of Chaos Fear in these two. And ever since, you know, Catch 33, I feel like they've perfected this sound that they've had ever since. But so there you go. At number 1, Destroy, Erase, Improve. So there you go. So to re-rank real quick here, coming in at number 8, I've got their debut from '91, Contradictions Collapse. At number 7, I'm going with their most recent album from 2016, The Violent Sleep of Reason. Number 6, I'm going to go with their 2012 album, Kolos. At number 5, we're going to go with their 2002 or 06, depending on how you look at it, Nothing. Number 4, you're going with their concept album from 05. I'm going with Catch 33. Number 3, I'm going with Obzen from 2008. Number 2, I'm going with Chaos Fear from 98. And at number 1, I'm going with Destroy, Erase, Improve from 95. So ranking 8 mighty albums of pulverizingly heavy, crushing juggernaut of a band from northern Sweden, way up. These guys are not from Stockholm. They're from Umeå, which is almost to the North Pole. Just a couple other things. I don't have the Alive DVD from the Obzen tour, but I do have the Ophidian track, which was off of the Kolos tour, and this is great. You got Swarm, Combustion, Rational Gaze, Obzen, Lethargica, Do Not Look Down, The Hurt That Finds You First, I Am Colossus, Bleed, Demiurge, New Millennium, Cyanide, Christ, Dancers to a Discordant System, and then you got this Catch 33 piece, which is Minds, Mirrors, In Death is Life, and Death is Death, and then they finish it with The Last Vigil. So this is awesome. Awesome. So I would definitely check that out, and I've got the, I don't know if it's the DVD or the Blu-ray, but I've got the 2 discs and the video all in this digipack. And then also Frederick Dorndahl's Special Defects was the name of his band project from '97. Soul Niger Within. It's 40 minutes long, I believe. It's actually longer than 40 minutes, but it's got 29 tracks. And he's got Morgan Agron, who's like a progressive rock drummer. He's been working with Devin Townsend and other bands, but he was the drummer way back in the day on this. And I like this a lot too. And he borrows from, like, if you like Sub-Levels from Destroy, Erase, Improve, that kind of eerier thing. So it's an experimental, cool album. I wish he would do a follow-up to this. I mean, it's been 24 years. But either way, I think if you like Meshuggah at all, this is like Meshuggah Jr. This is definitely a direct descendant of the Meshuggah sound right here. What else? Did I miss anything else? I think that covers pretty much everything. Like I said, I think you should go out and get the rare tracks, because it's got Concatenation Remix. It's got their first demo from '89 on there. It's got some ayahuasca song that's crazy. It's got some demos and some earlier stuff. And then I need to get the I EP, which is one big 20-minute song concept, which was what they did in '04, right before they did the Catch 33 concept. So that EP and Catch 33 they went in this like concept album phase. And it also, if you get the re-release, it's got this song, Pitch Black, which they recorded in '03 on there. I really dig this song too, so I need to get those. So I think that covers it. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.